This is episode 39 of the Home and Family Culture Podcast. I'm Jody Chafee. In this episode, I'm interviewing Kelly Stanley of Rising Up Coaching. Welcome to the Home and Family Culture Podcast, where I discuss how families can discover and design their collective vision, values, beliefs, and traditions that influence their family culture. In this podcast, I interview experts who offer tips and tools to inspire families in this process of developing their family culture, and also successful individuals whose success was influenced by their family culture growing up. Be sure to check out the show notes for this and every episode at homeandfamilyculture.com, where you can subscribe for my weekly newsletter filled with updates on the podcast and blog, as well as other tidbits of information I like to add. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, or YouTube. Please subscribe to your favorite medium. You can also find me on social media at Family Culture Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest, and at _Family Culture on Twitter. Be sure to comment, follow, like, rate, and share. But enough about all of that. Let's get to the episode. Thank you for listening. Kelly Stanley has a Master's of Arts degree in clinical psychology and is a certified professional coach. She has been a psychology professor for 12 years and a mother for 13 years. Her coaching practice, Rising Up, provides mental wellness coaching to help moms deal with the mental load of motherhood. Welcome, Kelly. So good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Jody. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So tell us more about Rising Up and how that was created.
Yeah, so the idea for Rising Up really came about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Like you mentioned, my education and training is in clinical psychology. So I went to school to be a therapist. And then shortly after graduate school, I had my first daughter. And then it was around that time, too, that I also got my first teaching job, teaching psychology at the college level. And I really fell in love with teaching. And years passed, and I was perfectly happy teaching college students. And then I just kind of got this itch and started feeling like it was time to get back to what I had gone to school for. Mm-hmm. So I really pondered this idea for months, and there was just something that wasn't adding up for me in terms of going back into psychology and being a therapist. And then I had this thought about maybe doing the work that I wanted to do through the modality of coaching, and things just clicked and fell into place. And then I, found myself in a program that I went through and became a certified professional coach, and that really was the beginning of Rising Up. So I think of Rising Up as a combination of my knowledge of psychology, combined with the experiences that I've had as a teacher and a mother, and really delivering that through this mechanism of coaching.
Yeah. So what would you say is your mission of Rising Up for helping mothers?
Yeah. So my mission is really, I think it's a mission that's shared by so many women these days. It's to empower women, and it's to help women specifically use the role of motherhood to rise to their highest potential and to live amazing and full lives.
That's a pretty big mission.
It is, but again, I feel like in some ways I have the support of the world, because this is like
it's so needed
in so many ways in this day. So
it's so needed. Yeah. We need all the support we can get.
Absolutely.
And so that, why did you want to focus on moms and the mental load of motherhood? I just want to throw that question out there, just because it's like, motherhood is a heavy load. It has been a burden. And so what led you to, what is your experience as a mom that led you to that?
I think looking back, and I didn't realize this at the time, but with hindsight, what I can see happened was that when I had my first daughter, everything that I knew about psychology, I kind of applied to her. And she had a very easy temperament. And I made the mistake of thinking that it was working, that what I was doing was working and was making things, easy and go well. And then when I had my second daughter, stopped. That same strategy didn't work.
Uh-huh.
So what I found most helpful in dealing with some of the struggles that came along with having that second child and a child with a very different temperament was really applying all that I knew about psychology to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time, I really understood that really the true gift of psychology is not to help me understand why other people do what they do, but to help me understand why I do what I do. And it's a game changer in parenting and even in life to have that self-awareness and to be willing to go for the why and the real why too, not just the surfacey why that we so quickly come up with, but the real reason why, because that's all that we have control over at the end of the day.
Right, is ourselves and what we can learn and what we can do.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah, I 100% love that. I agree with that completely. Yeah. And I'm glad that we're going to talk more about this. But leading into this idea about moms and family culture, what are your thoughts about family culture? What does it mean to you?
I love those two words together so much. I love them. I think it's everything. I think that it's home base. It's the foundation that it has tremendous influence over the people that we are in the larger world, and not just the kids, but the parents in the within that family culture too. What we experience at home is going to have such an impact on what we can give the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And it's such a comforting phrase, those words together.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the big world out there outside of our house is scary and uncertain. And, I think that what can really help is to have this strong foundation that we can absolutely get from family culture.
It is a foundation, and it prepares our families for the rest of the world. I mean, you can't shape the world for your kids, but you can prepare your kids for the world. And that's what, with family culture and that foundation that you lay for your kid, for your future, is what it's all about. You got to have that foundation. You got to have that vision.
Yes.
And the preparation, that you're not just winging it. You're not just coasting, because that's not good enough, because the rest of the world is so scary, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
I mean, that part of that burden as a mom is, what the rest of the world is trying to tell us about motherhood, or trying to tell us what we should do as moms and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. And so that's the part that's so scary. And the things that I'm learning, the message I'm trying to convey is that you create your own family culture, and you have to agree with yourself or your spouse what that family culture is, and agree with your kids what that family culture is, so that those outside influences you don't worry about them so much.
Right.
Because they are such a pressure and can really create a lot more anxiety than is really necessary, because you're already dealing with your own family, your own struggles, your own dramas. Right. And then to add to it, that outside pressure is just too much.
It is. It can crush us.
Yeah,
for sure. It can be overwhelming.
That's really, if I can just share really quickly with you, Kelly, when I started out, when I first had my first daughter, it was like whatever group I was surrounded with, they had all these strong opinions about the right, quote unquote, right way to mother, like even how the right way to like birth your child, or, things like that. And it was really hard. It made motherhood, being a new mom, that much more lonely, because it was like, I can't go out there. I can't expose all of my imperfect ways that I'm doing things, or all the ways that I believe are different from what they're doing, because I didn't want to be judged. And I didn't want that pressure of what these people were trying to tell me was the quote unquote right way to do it. And so it's it's hard, but that's what I'm trying to help people to learn to understand. And I appreciate this conversation that we can have is that let go of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I thank you for the work you're doing. I think there's a lot of people that have really caught on to this and that are really speaking out about, hey, there are lots of ways to be a good mom. There's not a single way to be a good mom. And I think that, there's a lot of great parenting experts out there, and there's a lot of great books and, podcasts and things to listen to that have helped me tremendously. But I think at the end of the day, if you aren't grounded in your own awareness, those things don't work, because our kids know when we are, trying a technique on them.
Right.
And if it doesn't match with who we are, it's
not natural,
not effective. And I can imagine from their perspective, they feel like they're, being a little guinea pig. Like, what is she going to, what's going to be tried next? And so I think that before you can even consider other people's ideas and advice and, what they recommend, you really have to be in touch with who you are and what works for you. And, what is your personality and what are your aspirations? And then from there, wow, you can use there's all kinds of ways to be good enough at this.
Yeah. And I like how you said originally too, that it's like, it is working on you and what you can do. If you are constantly trying to put pressure on then your kids or your spouse or, things like that, then that backfires. And
right. Yeah, it absolutely, you spoke of having, create this situation where there's just unnecessary stress and anxiety. And there's no better way to do it than that. Than to try and, control everything around you and change other people. And really, the most, I think, productive results come from looking within always.
Yeah. I like that word grounded that you used. That's really a cool perspective of like, just be grounded, figure out you and what makes you tick. I love that. So what is the parent's role in setting the tone for family culture?
So I think that that moms, specifically moms, and this is not to say that dads don't play an important piece or, other family members. Of course they do. But I think that the reality is that moms in this day and age play such a pivotal role in family culture. And we all know this, and we see it reflected all around us. We can think about that old saying, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, right?
Yeah, right.
I actually love and hate that.
Yeah, right.
That saying, I dislike it. Perpetuates this idea that moms and women are kind of unreasonable and, irrational and too sensitive. And also, I do not think that it's true that a mother alone can completely control the well-being of her family. But we absolutely play a big part in this. And I think the reason for this is because, generally speaking, mothers are still the ones that are primarily carrying the emotional and the mental load of the family. And this is overwhelming, right? And it can feel like a burden. But the other option here is to, think about it in a way that empowers you, because really what it does is gives you tremendous influence over the tone that is set in your family.
So what are some ways that we can use that attitude to empower ourselves?
So I think that in terms of maybe specific areas to work on or coping strategies to deal with, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that the first thing, and this is kind of based off the work that I do in my online program with moms, is the first thing is that we have to get very, very clear on what our aspirations are. And like, we talked about earlier, it is super easy to confuse the world's expectations with your personal aspirations. It's so noisy. It's hard to take the time and stop and listen and figure out what is really true to you. So that's really, the first step is trying to figure out what your personal aspirations are, what's most important to you. And then another thing that I think can be really helpful is making sure that you take care of yourself. And I don't mean a pedicure here, right? I even hesitate to use the word self-care because it's so overused these days, but really it is about very meaningful, intentional self-care. And it's about doing things that help to feed our abundance mindset, doing things that fill us up, because we as mothers are going to have to give and give and give and help and give. And if we're not doing that from a place of abundance, it's hard to do that in a healthy way, healthy for ourselves, and healthy for our family as well. So I think that, with self-awareness, you can really work towards some very meaningful self-care practices that help you to be in that state of mind where you can, be effective and be helpful and do really what it is that all moms want to do. Right.
Yeah.
And then the last piece that I think, requires self-awareness and can be very helpful in maintaining this mental health and mental wellness in motherhood is getting clear about what your boundaries are, right? And that comes after you are clear on your aspirations, but then you have to protect those you have to protect those aspirations by setting boundaries, and by knowing that what you're okay with, what you're not okay with, and really learning, because we have to learn this. This is not something that comes natural to us, especially as women. Yeah. We have to learn how to interact with people, and this is even our kids, in a way that doesn't compromise who we are, in a way that doesn't, sacrifice who we are at the end of the day. Right. And that looks different for everyone. So that's why you have to really be tuned into you, and who you are and what your aspirations are before you can even, do any of that work.
I love everything. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That's all really, I love those points, because it's like, so much I think of the cultural pressure from outside is like to be the martyr, or, if you aren't putting your kids first all the time, or, things like that. Or if you are doing anything that feeds your soul or takes care of yourself or parenting yourself, that's what self-care really is just, taking responsibility, right? And taking care of yourself. Yeah. And that, oh, well, what about the kids? Where are your kids? And it's just like, well, they're fine, actually. In fact, they're going to be even better off because mom's taking care of herself.
Absolutely.
And being able to come back and model self-care, model coping skills, modeling that this can be fun and fulfilling and not just this draining, stressful experience that then your kids are going, I don't want to be a parent. Like, that looks so awful, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that we do have to acknowledge the difficulty of this role, right? And we have to acknowledge that, we're in this time where I think we're getting more help with the physical labor of childcare. Right. And because that stuff is easy to see, changing diapers or driving the kids to school or, grocery shopping. Right. Those things are things that we can see, that we can hopefully ask for help with, with our spouse or partner. But then there's this whole other world of emotional labor and, tuning into our kids' emotions and teaching them to be emotionally intelligent and focusing on their strengths and even knowing what those are. And then, oh my gosh, the planning and prepping of keeping up with doctor's appointments and trying to provide healthy meals and interactions with extended family. And, I could go on and on. Yeah. And that's the stuff that is still falling on our shoulders almost exclusively in most families. And this is the reality of our families these days. Yeah. And it's a lot of work and it's really hard and it's invisible and it's not appreciated and it's not valued, and no one's giving us a gold star or a paycheck or any other extrinsic reinforcer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I think to acknowledge that, right? And to acknowledge that this is changing. And as mothers, we can play a big role in how our future unfolds in terms of men being able to step in and do some of these things. And we can play that role by thinking about how we're raising our sons and being really thoughtful in that. And that, I mean, wow, I can go forever. That gives me so much hope and so much motivation. And it's not so much of a burden. Right?
Yeah.
Well, I like this time.
Yeah. And I like what you said about the boundaries, trying to figure out what you can deal with, what is, something that you just don't want to deal with, or things that you think, you know what, I am at my quota for stress or to do. And so then you can delegate that stuff to your husband, or you can delegate that to a service, you talked about how people recognize the stress of going grocery shopping. And so there's a lot of really great services out there now that make it a lot easier. Yeah. And then, but when those things that are invisible, that's harder to learn how to set boundaries around, because you go, well, this is just my job, or this is just part of the stresses of being a mom. I mean, there are things that are hard because a lot of times kids, they go, no, I want mom. That happens a lot in my family.
Yeah.
And as much as my husband would love to help out, my kids just throw a fit whenever it's not me. Yep. And so those are the types of things where it's like, well, how do I establish that boundary with our kids that I have my limits? And so sometimes being able to talk to the kids about what your limits are, being able to tell them, look, I can't, or not I can't, because that's you don't want to have that scarcity, right? You talked about having an abundance mentality. And so it's not about trying to say, no, I can't, because it's about saying, listen, I need to know what my boundaries are and where this is going to serve our family. Not, I can't, I'm done. Or, then you're starting to feel like a failure, right? Right. And so, but when you understand what your boundaries are and learning how to delegate those things, or how to set the standards for where to meet everybody's needs, that's coming from a perspective of abundance, where we can do this together.
Yeah. There's enough in the world. I'm enough in the world. And that doesn't mean that you are perfect or you think you are perfect, right? But you're enough. And that means that you can deal with maybe those nights when you do say, I can't, I can't do this anymore, right? Because, we always have another chance the next day, a million chances the next day. So it's really about being comfortable with making mistakes too, and messing up. And also, when we have firm boundaries in place, we can get better at kind of seeing those limits coming, when we're reaching max capacity, and maybe, step out.
This is a theme in my life right now of being able to mess up.
I've
been hearing this a lot lately. But, this idea that this is all a process.
Absolutely.
That it's not like you're going to get it right the first time. You're just not. It's all part of this process that you go, today maybe wasn't that good. Yeah. But resilience is being able to get up and recover from that struggle or that fall, setback.
Yeah.
Get up and try again.
Absolutely.
Because it is hard.
That's all we can do, right? And you can't, what more could you ask from a person? That's it, Yeah. You mess up, you try again, right? You're working, you're not giving up, right? No. You're not saying this is the best I can do. You're always working to do better, right? Yeah. To be better. And I don't think we can ask for any more than that from any person. And so I think that that's maybe hard for moms to hear, because there is this expectation of, perfection and do it all, but never going to happen, right? And again, that doesn't mean, because, something that I see a lot in our culture is kind of this attitude that, it's kind of this bad mom attitude, this, I'm going to embrace, and I think it's hilarious. And I've laughed.
It's entertaining
times. Yeah. And I think there's a place for it, because absolutely, I think we need to laugh about some of the outrageous, expectations or situations that we find ourselves in sometimes. But at the same time, I feel like, I hope this doesn't make people want to just give up, like just embrace the bad mom role and laugh about everything. And because I don't think that's a very fulfilling place to live, right? So I think it's a balance of laughing at things, knowing that we're never going to be perfect, but always making sure that we are, making progress.
Yeah. Well, like I saw this one article once where people were joking in front of this lady's kids about, oh, you have to deal with all these kids and oh, you better it was like they were commiserating with her, but making it sound like this was a big burden.
Yeah.
And then the child heard that and they go, Mom, are we a burden to you guys? Is that what it's like? And so then what are we telling our kids when we're constantly in this bad mom mentality that this is a huge drag, or this is not even close to what I dreamed about doing in my life, or, things like that. It's just like,
yeah,
but they are the reason. Like, we love these kids. And so, it challenges us to be different. It challenges us to find our boundaries, and it challenges us to figure out how to cope. But that doesn't mean that this is a burden.
Right.
That's what I struggle with, is this idea that it's like, well, you better go medicate because you gotta deal with the stress. And it's like, there are ways to cope. And so that's something I want to talk about too, is what are some other ways that moms can cope? Because that's something that I've been learning in my life, that, I've been a mom now for almost 9 years, and it's like, and I have 4 kids, and we homeschool, so we're always together.
Wow.
and but something that I've been learning is that if there's something in my day or in my week that I can see that fulfills me, that is fulfilling, it's inspiring for me, whether it's my studies or whether it's this podcast or something like that, that helps me to cope. And it's been giving me hope and direction of something that I'm aspiring to, that is maybe not related to motherhood, but is something that is fulfilling to me. So can you tell us a little bit more about that aspect of ways that moms can cope?
Yeah, I do think that we have to have our own lives, which is what you're describing, right? I think that, again, we kind of buy into this idea that a good mom is a mom that's all enmeshed in everything that her kids do. And hey, I can relate to that, because I want to go there sometimes. I do go there sometimes, right? I'm too involved. I'm too invested. But again, at the end of the day, it's not very fulfilling, and it's certainly not helpful to our children, right? And I know that all moms want the best for their kids, right? And that's always the intention. So I think, things that do just help you to kind of take a step back and have your own life and do those things that that you enjoy, right? That fill you up, that feed your abundance mindset. I think that's really kind of the central piece there in terms of helping us to be more effective and calmer and more peaceful and more patient at home.
Yeah. The things that feed your identity, feed you, like, who am I? Because I think that's one of the struggles too, is that you become a mom, and then it's like it consumes your life. And, I've been in group things where, people introduce themselves and they're supposed to say something that they're interested in or inspired by, and they go, I don't know. And that just makes me kind of, oh, that's sad. I want to feel like I'm feeding myself, and modeling for my kids something that they can look to as, look, this is me learning about what I'm passionate about. Something it could be a skill, it could be, whatever, something that I'm doing just to fulfill my identity and fuel who who I can say, that I can introduce myself and say, this is me and I'm passionate about X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And it's like, we want to be passionate about our kids. We want to be passionate about helping them and teaching them. And those good intentions like you talked about. But I do think it's a really good idea, like that something that I've been finding is that when I have a passion, that actually translates into like a family passion almost. That it's something that, that like, for example, me taking the time to do this podcast is something that now my kids are like, oh, mom has an interview today. And, something like that they start to get excited with me about it and things like that. And so it's, if it were that I were taking an art class, or if it were that I enjoyed quilting, or, my mom was a quilter when I was growing up. So it's like, it's something that you just get excited about, then your family starts to get excited about it.
Yeah, definitely. And the energy that we bring to our family is the kind of the underlying family culture, right? That's what underlies our family culture, is what we bring to our family energetically. And so if we're bringing burden, right, the energy that comes along with burden and stress and overwhelm, then there's no excitement in that, right? There's a lot of negative emotions that we're really teaching and conditioning to associate with family life. But if we are our own happy, somewhat independent, have our own interest, fulfilled people, then we don't even have to do anything explicitly to give that to our family. We just get to be that way around them. And that sets, this very different tone. So that's also another really comforting thought to me, because, you can get lost in trying to decide which, way to do this or which way to do that. But knowing that if I'm working on me and I'm trying to be the best human that I can be, that's enough.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
The last thing that I really want to cover is, what are some of the books that you do like to recommend for parents to help them manage stress or the emotional burdens of parenthood? Or, what are your favorite books that you like to recommend for parents?
Well, first let me just comment on reading, because, oh my gosh, it's what we've been talking about, right? At least for some people. I know not everyone, but I think just reading in general, especially if you are someone who really has a thirst for knowledge and information, or even if you have a particular interest, reading about that topic is a very wonderful and meaningful self-care practice. And it's cheap and easy, and you can do it anywhere, and it can really fill you up. So in that regard, it doesn't matter what you're reading. Whatever you like to read, right? You can read, and that can be helpful, and it can, help you with all these things that we've talked about today. As far as, reading that's a little more targeted to parenting and managing stress, I think that it starts with self-awareness. I think that, this is the place to start, right? Before you even dive into, parenting books necessarily. I really love the work of Brené Brown.
Yes.
I mean, she, I think, talks about something that really stands in the way of our self-awareness so often.
Yeah.
And so I love all of her books, particularly her early ones. I think her first one was, I Thought It Was Just Me, But It Isn't. Which, I mean, that title says it all, right? Or the Gifts of Imperfection. That was another early one. Great. I mean, all of her stuff is really, really great. And then as far as books that are geared kind of more towards this kind of conscious parenting or intentional parenting approach, I love Janet Lansbury, No Bad Kids. Kathy Kasani Adams has 3 great books: The Self-Aware Parent, Part 1 and 2, and then Living What You Want Your Kids to Learn. I love Dr. Shafali's The Conscious Parent. And then for older kids, because I do have a teenager, I love Michelle Icard's Middle School Makeover. Okay. And if you really want to get excited about having a teenager and have a total shift in mindset about teenagers, Dr. John Duffy is great.
Okay.
Has a book called The Available Parent. And it's really kind of geared more towards older kids.
Awesome. So Kelly, what would be your parting tip for parents?
I guess I would say to make sure you zoom out every once in a while and you really look at the big picture, right? And you know that, again, if you're doing the best you can and you're working on yourself and you're bringing that kind of energy into your family, things are going to turn out okay, right? Just take a deep breath, relax, zoom out. It's bigger than a particular struggle you're having with your kid or a challenge, or developmental stage. It's going to be okay.
You're doing a good job.
Yes, you're doing a good job.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Where can we find you?
So I am on social media on Facebook and Instagram you can search Rising Up Coach. And then you can also find me on my website, risingupcoach.org.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you.
Cody, thank you so much.
I'm so thankful for Kelly and this episode. So awesome to talk about this important topic of mother self-care and what that really means. I would love for you to go to my Facebook page. That's facebook.com/familyculturepodcast, and comment on this post about what your self-care habits are, what your passions are, your hobbies, and how your energy that you bring into your family is influencing your family culture. And I want to hear about your victories and those things that help you to get up the next day and start a new day, or when you have a bad day, to say, it's okay, tomorrow's another day. And I really love this idea and this concept of the energy that we bring, that if we are working on ourselves and we are bringing a positive energy, that's enough. And that's what our family culture really comes down to, is that feeling and the ability to cope and to have good and positive energy in our home and in our family. So please go to that post on Facebook and comment about what you love to do to take care of yourself and bring a positive energy to your family. Thank you once again for listening. Thank you for your support. Please like and share and rate and comment and all those things. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much, and have a great day.